Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. Joining me in the CNC is Karen,
Hello.
Lou,
How do, folks?
and I'm Jesse Jackson. We are talking Severed Dreams, the 10th episode of season 3. Originally aired April 1st, 1996, winner of the 1997 Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. This is a good one, the third of this kind of mini trilogy that we've had. Quick thoughts, Karen.
I don't know. I don't get all the hype about it. But won a Hugo, really, for this episode? I'm not sure about it.
And Lou?
I was confused by the title. I was waiting for somebody to dream, and that never happened. So I'm a little confused about this episode.
There we go.
Hey, you realize that
We're
that's
punking
not what we really mean.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I absolutely do.
Are you in on the joke or before we did it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. I got it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew exactly what you were saying.
Just so you know, David Darnell, who is one of our frequent commenters,
Yeah.
contacted me on Twitter and he said, for this episode, you just have to tell Jesse that you didn't like it.
I love that.
Okay, for reals though.
I assumed you guys were both tongue in cheek.
Yes, we were so lying. And I hate that it didn't work, really. I wanted you to be more alarmed that we didn't like this one. But
he wasn't fooled for a second.
no, he wasn't. Yeah, this was an amazing episode, I thought. And I see why it won awards. So that's what I really feel about it.
Yeah, very nice. How about you, Lou? You still didn't get any dreams, did you?
No, still didn't get my dream, but this was like a Spinal Tap 11, like off the chart stuff going on. Actually, it could have been a two-parter with all the material that they covered. But this is where the show has gotten to the point where I think that everybody that likes the show and hypes it up all the time, to me, it's finally gotten to that point where it's okay. Now the pedal's been put to the metal, and now all this 2.5 seasons of buildup is finally starting to pay dividends.
Yeah, he's been sowing the seeds of Earth and having problems, and you guys have talked about it, where asking the questions, where's this going to end, where this is going to end, and the line is drawn in the sand, to use an Alamo reference, and they're not going to do anymore. Did want to talk a little bit, because this is well known, that General Haig is not here, and they're going to talk about it in some of our feedback. But basically, JMS had planned for this actor, Robert Foxworth, to come back and have this wonderful arc. And right before they were going to start filming, his agent called and said, hey, he's been double booked. And so even though we agreed to you first, he's going to do this other one
on DS9, which I think is
because it pays more.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, fine. And the agent says, and he hopes to come back another time. And MS says, never F with the writer. He killed him off immediately. He tells a wonderful story that he did not hold a grudge, that when the casting people reached out to him when he was doing Jeremiah and said, we need to cast the president, and we think Robert Foxworth would be great in this role, but we know you guys have a problem. Do you care? And he said, no, I do agree. I think he'd be perfect for that role. And to show that there's no hard feelings, I'm going to write additional 10 pages of dialogue for him to learn before he gets on set, these great monologues. Now, the truth is we probably won't be able to show them, but we're going to film them anyway. And I'll make sure and tell the director that, no, that wasn't quite right. So we'll have to do it over and over again. But I don't hold a grudge at all.
Yeah. I like to think of Robert Foxworth as the sci-fi Robert Reed.
Mhm.
He's got that Robert Reed vibe about him. At least back then, not now.
That's a good description.
It is.
It is. I mean,
Mhm.
and he's all over the place.
Yeah,
so.
I remember him mostly from the Quester tapes myself. But
Yes, I remember that too. Yeah.
Yep.
So the other funny story that Stravinsky shares is he said right after Foxworth had told him they weren't going to go on his agent, Stravinsky was at a diner and he saw, let me make sure I get this right because it's pretty funny. He saw a actor he really enjoyed, Everett McGill, who played Big Ed Hurley on Twin Peaks. And he saw Everett McGill and he said, "Hey, I have a part for you. I'm going to book you."
Mm.
And he said, the guy went, "Yeah, because you hear that all the time." He goes to the casting thing at Babylon 5 and says, "Hey, I want us to book this McGill guy. Do you know his name?" "No, I don't know. He was on Twin Peaks." So when Bruce McGill shows up on stage because they didn't audition because it was just an offer, JMS was like, "That isn't who I wanted." He said, "I want to make sure that he said Bruce McGill played it great. I think he was a wonderful actor, and we're going to talk about him a little bit." And so there was an outtake, and they talked about this on IMDb. They said, "Where's General Haig?" And he says, "General Haig is doing Deep Space Nine. He was double booked by his agent. There was nothing to be done, so you have to do with me, sir."
Night.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the behind the scenes of why we got that. We start out with a Earth cruiser. We do have the Major talking about it. I thought that was a great scene where he's reluctant to open fire. And then and Major Ryan, even after they win, he talks about the captain saying he's got these daughters and his lovely wife. And this is the problem. We know the enemy. And it made me very much think of the Civil War.
Sure.
And this feeling. Let's talk a little bit about where we are setting this up. And Karen will just go wherever we go. But let's talk about it.
I'm guessing that in the fictional world of Babylon 5, that must have been incredibly difficult for Sheridan to make that call, because he is, and I know this word is clouded now, but in the strictest terms, a patriot. He serves his world. It's not country anymore, it's world, right? He serves Earth. And loyal to a fault, I think, except now he realizes that Earth isn't on the correct side of history. And if he wants to stay true to his code, his own code of ethics, he has to stand against them. And this is really shown in this episode, shown and told, where he does make that little speech about, we know the enemy and it's going to be difficult. One of my very small nits about this episode is him saying twice to the CNC staff, "If you have a problem with it, you can leave now." He says it twice. And it's a little irritating to me. It should have just been the first time, and if they stayed, then they stayed. And again, that's just a tiny little nit for me. But
and I'm thinking in my mind that there's that great scene in Firefly where the doctor just said, "Why'd you come get me?" He goes, you're on my crew." "Yeah, but it would have been like, you're on my crew. Why are we still talking about this?" I would love if someone in the CNC to go, You've already asked this, Captain.
Why are we still discussing it?
Yeah, why are we still discussing this?
Yeah, exactly. The second time, I'm guessing you mean.
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly.
I don't know what the second time he says it, what does that convey? It just allows one person to actually leave the CNC. And the first instance, I think it was for us to realize that Corwin, because they had that question about him. Yeah. Now they've cemented Corwin's with them. So I did appreciate that I could feel his struggle with it. And then it's tied up very nicely at the end where he tells the other commander he can't put on the jacket. Yeah. Because he just doesn't feel right. So I thought that whole storyline where he is struggling with it was very impactful, and they did a really good job of it.
Yeah, I think the symbolism of not putting on the jacket is a very show part of and telling of what he is, how it looks different, because we always see him dressed in uniform except when he's off.
Even when he is in his quarters, we saw that last episode where he's sitting in his quarters in his uniform waiting to be called. Yeah. That's his deal, is how loyal he is to his job and all that. Yeah. So.
Lou?
It was interesting that you mentioned that casting issue with Bruce McGill, because when that opening scene started playing, my experience with that actor, and I've seen him on a lot of things, is he's always played the heavy, or majority of the time. So when I was watching the scene, I'm going, okay, so is this guy good or is he bad?
Or is he bad? Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure, because everything I've seen him in, he's always played like a henchman or something like that. So I thought, where did his loyalties lie? And then it was good
I'm sorry, he was in Quantum Leap where he played God, and even when he played God, I thought...
Yeah. And of course, the first time I remember him is from Animal House.
And
I think to a lot of people, that is who he will always be. But yes.
Again, another Animal House actor. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Okay, sorry, Lou.
No problem. So I was glad that, and I don't know if they wrote it because of if that was written already that way, or when he came on, that they maybe did a rewrite to include that stuff about him knowing the people on that ship that he just killed, because I thought that ended a good... It laid out the stakes of what was going on with this conflict. Though I have to question why this weapon they used only shoots backwards. Like, why wouldn't they have one that shoots forwards as well? Like, why didn't the other ship use theirs? So that was weird to me. I'm sure that there's an explanation for it in the Babylon 5 universe, but I thought it was a convenient story point that you can only use that weapon shooting backwards. So that was interesting.
Like a flying fortress, the B-52, right? They had guns, they had aft guns, forward guns, and on the side. So you would think they would have that somehow. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and even on not just the front and the back, but along the sides too. Unless that weapon is so powerful that it's directly connected to the weapon or the engines or something. But they don't explain it. So I was just going, okay, that's convenient. But so that's a great cold open, and you immediately know that this episode is going to be something different than what's been going on, because and it picks up nicely from the previous episode, because we were wondering where that ship had gone, and the episode picks up with that ship. So that was great. It was a little stunning to find out that the General Haig was killed off screen like that. So that was okay. That's a little anticlimactic. But now that you explained it, I understand that.
Yeah, I think that is one of those things, right, where I can imagine someone not knowing the story would go, wait a minute, what a waste. Why did you set up all this time and having him and then
kept on saying his name so often?
Yeah. Why wouldn't that be? Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that was a little deflating, but
I agree.
You get by that. And I don't know, do we want to go beyond the opening scene? I
you can go wherever you want.
I talked about other stuff, just it all had to do with Sheridan and loyalty and all that.
I'll reserve my comments as we work through the episode, but I just want to focus on the opening sequence right now, and just in general about this episode. That poor little Omega computer must have been working overtime. They must have had a ton of fans on it, because there was a lot of special effects shot in this episode. And for the most part, they were pretty good, though sometimes because the ships all look the same, I couldn't figure out which ship was which. and where they were located spatially against one
Sure.
another and that. So that was a little confusing at times. But considering the constraints of their budget and that, I think they did a pretty amazing job overall with the technology of that time to show a pretty major space battle. And yeah, it was pretty good. I just wish there was a little better music on Star Wars. You got that famous Star Wars
Yeah.
motif going on. This one, it was just generic TV soundtrack stuff. So,
Well,
but
no, yeah, there was a soundtrack, and you actually can buy the soundtrack on. Yeah, didn't work for you as much, the music.
No, but I think in general, the music in Babylon 5 is probably one of the weaker ones for all the shows I've watched. The opening, even like the opening theme this season, once it goes from the initial stuff that we're used to, and then it starts showing like the battle stuff and all that, and then they do that discordant.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is, organ or piano or whatever it is.
Okay,
it's okay, but yeah, it doesn't give you that epic like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
let's fight. Dun, 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 dun. I want something like that. I like orchestral scores for stuff, and they lean heavily into the electronic stuff, which for me just is more colder, and it doesn't engage the emotions the same way. But that's just a personal thing.
No, he's Christopher Frankie is the composer of that. He did all of Babylon 5. So I think that's just a matter of taste, right? I think
absolutely.
A lot of fans do enjoy his compositions. So
I'm going to get a lot of.
No, I think that's fine.
I'll join in with you. I think it's fine. I just don't think it stands out from other genre shows.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing I wanted to mention is, because overall I love the episode, so I'm just getting my nits out of the way.
Sure.
But I thought Sheridan's speech to the station should have been more epic as well. I was waiting for, again, Lord of the Rings, when King Theoden's rallying the troops kind of speech sort of thing, or even something like Kirk and Star Trek Tomorrow's Yesterday. Risk is our business. That's why we're out here. But he didn't do anything like it. It was kind of like he was reading a proclamation of, we're going to be cleaning the streets at 5:00 today, so please get off and take all your garbage off the street, kind of thing. It was an okay speech, but it wasn't a rousing, epic speech. So I'm glad that they had that scene at the end where he came out on the concourse and everybody cheered on because it was badly needed.
Okay, and I have to say that as long as we're talking about that scene, the
the
slow clap into a fast clap is so cheesy.
It is very cheesy. Yes, that is a cliche. That is a trope that I wish
would go away.
Yes.
Yeah. People mention it as a funny, stupid thing. And even back then, it was a funny, stupid thing. And it was just interesting that they used that.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is right to do a nitpick, Lou, is we know that this show has done its share of great speeches.
Yep.
We've talked about in episode, even in season 1 and season 2, where we talk about this epic speeches, where we'll end often on this dramatic moments, whether it's Delenn or Jakar, Sinclair, or even Sheridan at times, right? So I do think you could have gone, in my mind canon, it's because he is feeling mixed emotions on this, and he's still trying to figure out a way not to have to do this. So that's why he wasn't as stirring as Winston Churchill. We will fight them. Yeah, but I think it's a fair and
I just thought it was a missed opportunity for a really emotional speech.
I think that's fair.
Right, and in the same amount of time, it wouldn't have taken.
Yeah. It just needed some tweaking.
Once again, this is eerie of how much this strikes of reality.
Yep.
That a lot of people on Earth are happy with martial law.
Yeah.
Because crime is down.
Yeah.
Right. Hello, the police force.
Yeah. Slowly but surely, Clark has been appointing people in place so that there isn't as many people being that are going to go against this. This is,
Yep.
he has his people around. And I think what was really well done is when Mars, the ground force, the ships going to bombard, and Mars going, there's women and children here. And they don't care. With war, people die. And
so
I think
I wish they could have actually showed us.
Yeah.
A little of the battle, sure.
Yeah.
No, just showed us the citizens of that dome. Because it was just all radio voice. Again, I understand the constraints of the TV budget, but I would have.
And they had so many other special effects. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was a bit disappointing. However, I will turn to the positive now for all the listeners out there. I thought the moment when Delenn showed up was friggin' awesome. That was the highlight of the episode for me.
Yep.
And, John Sheridan is the only man to defeat Minbari Cruiser, and he is behind me, and you are in front of me. That was the highlight of the episode. I just loved her arrival.
The actual quote is, "Only one human captain has ever survived battle with a Minbari fleet.
Yeah.
He is behind me. You're in front of me. If you value your lives, be somewhere else."
Yeah.
And then they just tow them.
They turn around and they're out.
I would think over the years that if this is not the top moment of Babylon 5, it would be in everyone's top 5.
Okay.
It is, and not that it goes downhill from here, but that is just such an epic. Now, my nitpick is, okay, what are you saving Draw for?
Yeah, right? I forgot about that.
Yeah, come on, guys.
Let's use his holographic system, but nothing else.
And just think this was one of those things that
they painted themselves into a corner, and then,
they thought this might be a good thing, and then later, well, then
if we
how
use
do we
them,
not use? Yeah, how do we not use this as our get out of jail free card every time? But
because they could have. They hung that lantern on, and then they were like, I don't want to turn it on.
Oh, I do have one more.
Sure.
How is it that Delenn can, on her own, dissolve the Great Council? She's not the president. She's not even on the Great Council anymore. She's just
I think she just told them they needed to. I don't think she actually did.
But why would they listen to her?
Let's talk about that.
They won't.
She comes in. I also, my other nitpick and is, okay, Lanier's okay, I'm gonna let you go by yourself, even though in the past he's
no, I will not
go
let you
everywhere without you. But I understand we needed to see her alone, and you could do the mind gif of she needed him there on the station, right? She made the argument that with everything going on in Hell in a Handbasket, you need to be here. But when she talks about that she stood on the Great Council all these years, Ducat, who is the great leader, died in her arms, that you will get out of the way, and that force of nature. And when she talks about just choose out the council, the reason I think it works, Lou, is while there are 4 members of the military cast, the other 8 are the religious and the worker cast.
And they're behind Delenn.
So those 8 left with her, and the 4 military cast.
Okay, that's fair. I guess I'm taking the episode summary too much to heart, because it says she makes her own fateful decision to dissolve the Great Council. Who's she? But you're right. When you, in the context of what happens in the episode, she's got the sentiments of the majority of the council on her side, which makes sense. And that's how the scene played out. So I withdraw that pick. Because
there's,
that played
I
out
guess
properly.
The Great Council is 9. So she has 3 workers, 2 religious is 5, and then the warrior cast is 4. Because remember last time they were shocked that when she left, they put a military person in charge, because it was always supposed to be 3-3-3.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of a president is supposed to appoint a Supreme Court justice, but not a year before he's elected. You don't get to tell him, no, you don't get to do this anymore.
Unless they're a Republican. And then
Boy,
sorry.
And do you think Sheridan got Twitter pated when Delenn showed up?
I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
He had heart eyes.
Yep.
Yeah. That is I love the scene with her and just ripping the Grey Council.
Me too.
Yep.
And then I thought it was a great battle scene that we did get to see some of them invading the station.
I thought it was really impactful that they did it with music and the sound of the gunfire, and that was not really slow motion, but the camera did a weird thing. It was impactful like that.
A lot of extras
I'm
in this
using
episode.
impactful a lot. Yeah.
So they showed the outside, the battle against the station. Susan does her heroic, look, I need to be out there. One of us has to be. Because Sheridan immediately, no, you're my second in command. You need to have your ass here.
I'm surprised he didn't go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when she called him, one of us has to be out there. And he's, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, it's one of those we can't ask people to do something that we wouldn't.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be ready to do ourselves.
Yeah, so I think both the inside and outside fighting were really well done. It is on both in JMS's postings and in his script book that they were out down to the very last moment of every special effect.
I bet.
That they were like the person was waiting for the finished episode to send everyone at the very last moment. That because they were working on this so much. Yeah.
I read that there's two things that I found amusing about this. Okay, not really amusing, but that the actor who played Garibaldi, I can't remember his name, but that he broke some bones in one of the fights, and that's why he's limping at the end. And then the fact that they had to do several takes of that Grey Council scene because Mira Furlan couldn't break the staff.
Right.
Every time. I didn't think the bone breaking was amusing, but it was an interesting fact. But I did think the breaking of the staff was very amusing.
Yeah. They
very
said
Lord
that
of the Ringish.
they ended up having to he says if you look very carefully, they ended up getting her a pre-broken stick. And so when she breaks it, there's a slight smile like that she finally gets it done. They had to insert it. Yeah, Jerry Dole, they were supposed to show that he broke his foot, and that's why he was limping, but he actually broke his arm in two places. And so when
during a fight scene, right?
Yeah. So during the end, when Zach is holding him and he looks like he's in a lot of pain, he really was. His arm was killing him. So, but he knew just how important that was. And I like the idea that they were attacking the station. We have the Narn helping out. I thought that was a nice little line from Sheridan. Jakar has delivered every time we've asked them. We got to trust them. Any other things about the fights that we want to talk about?
I thought both the practical fighting and the special effects scenes were really well done. Again, I don't know if they blew their special effects budget on this one episode for the season, but it definitely was pretty impressive given the state of the technology. Again, I'm just thinking they use Amiga computers for this stuff. And I have to say and I've mentioned this point before, but on my 4K TV with my Blu-ray player upscaling, they hold up really well. They look really good. Yeah. It's impressive.
I agree. 100%. I agree. And we mentioned that in the last episode, the fight scene was good as well. And I really do think that if it stays consistently high quality, then I 100% get it. Why this show is so beloved, because it seems like in this season particularly, those kinds of scenes have really stood out to me as good. So.
Yeah. One of the things that I really enjoyed reading behind the scenes is they have open casting. So they will write a character and then they will see actors, and they will, just because very seldom they say we need a male 40s or this. And Captain Hiroshia was originally written as a white male, but when Kim Mayura came in, they were like, oh, she's it. Let's rewrite it. She's the perfect person for the part. And I thought she was done really well. I'm glad, not that I'm glad anyone dies, but in this fictional world, it makes sense that there would be someone pay the ultimate price. And the idea that he's going to take those ships of hers to give them a place to stay and give them extra support was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was really good. I like that they're now going to be part of the Babylon 5.
Yeah. So does this mean that they're going to change uniforms for the rest of the series, or is it just Sheridan? Or is that a spoiler? Given the show's budget, I don't know if they could afford new uniforms for everybody. But
and where's Marcus? Again.
Marcus.
Yeah, where's our boy Marcus?
Yeah,
this would have
been on the Starfire.
Yeah,
or White
I
Star,
agree.
White Star, sorry.
100%.
Yeah.
Although
he's out recruiting Rangers.
Did Delenn take that ship? I don't know. She has her own ship though.
Yeah.
But anyway.
What does
Before this happens, John needs to call home.
Mm-hmm.
And the great Rance Howard has a small part. One of the things I absolutely love is that the movie, oh, damn it. Let me think of the name. Talk among yourself. Let's talk about Rance Howard for a minute. The scenes of him talking to his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought it was a really strong scene. I didn't recognize the actor at first, but I kept thinking when I was looking at him, I says, boy, he looks like Richie Cunningham or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
Ron Howard. And because Ron Howard has the same hairline now as his dad. So it was funny to watch that. And I thought his dad played that scene quite well. And again, the echoes of what's going on in your country were very strong in that scene. And I just thought, boy, if they just had social media back, if they were just aware of what social media has become, that would have been interesting to see, in that somehow touched upon in that scene as well. And they, in a way, reference the fact that if people come after him, that he has his neighbors all like him for whatever reason. So I thought that was a great line as well. And yeah, that actor, he just really killed that scene, and it was great to see. And I thought it was, again, setting up the stakes of what's happening. And it was just really well done. And I think it was the emotional linchpin of the episode.
Yeah, I love that he said, don't start a fight, but finish it. And he quotes that, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts, Karen, before I give you a little bit of trivia?
Yeah, I loved seeing him in this episode. I think it's funny that you mentioned how much he looks like his son. He does. When he was younger and he was in things, he was like a carbon copy. Yeah, Ron is a carbon copy of his dad when they were both young. And it makes me wonder if Clint Howard was maybe the mailman's son or something, because he looks so different.
Well,
but
probably
anyway,
looks like his mom.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But I really loved seeing him in this as a dad, because that is such a good role for him. That's almost like his real life, that he's a dad, and his advice to his son, John Sheridan, was amazing. And the fact that he didn't come out and say it, but he knew why he was calling, and he knew the ramifications and all that. So I really appreciated his role on the show.
So, recommendation, listeners: The Boys, a memoir of Hollywood and family, was written by Ron Howard and Clint Howard, came out in 2022. It is their story of being raised by Rance and their father. Ron talks about his time on Andy Griffin. Clint talks about Gentle Ben. They talk about how much their father was involved with them and how much advice they gave him. So it's a very touching memoir. So in the around 2006, 2007, word came out that J. Michael Straczynski had written a script called Changeling. And Ron Howard was in talks to direct it. And when he was meeting with Ron Howard, Ron supposedly said, "Oh, I know who you are. Anyone who gives my dad a job, I know who it is." And so they connected. Then Ron Howard had a conflict, could not direct. There's a lot of discussion about, oh, this is being horrible. And JMS in his postings like, no, it's going to work out okay. And Clint Eastwood ended up directing it. And it was actually nominated for a BAFTA, changing. Yeah, it is. I thought really nice to see him because Rance Howard has been in tons of shows as usually a dad. And so, yeah, really nicely done. Let me look at my notes, see what else we need to talk about. Babylon 5 declared independence, which does not shock me, but as Sheridan says, we're the line against the darkness. And so they're set alone. I know some people complain that the major shouldn't have taken the ship away, that it's safer there, but I bought his, hey, we got to get us separate targets doing that. So we're left. Babylon 5 is alone in the night and has to figure out what they're going to do next. Any thoughts?
I really like that we get the coming together of the Orion colony, the Mars colony. We see all of these things that have been dropped in, and the fact that now they're all united against the Earth force thing. And it was, although I don't like the fact that they bombed the Mars colony, it was cool to see that. I brought it up several times, what's going on with the Mars colony. And so to me, and the fact that the ship goes off, so they're all in different places. Yeah. I love that, because that means that divide and conquer kind of thing. And it makes me hope that perhaps Earth forces will be overstretched, although they do have the shadows behind them. So it puts in my mind, hey, that's a good strategy, but now where do they go? Which is a good thing. It makes me want to watch more. So I really appreciated that plot point.
Yeah, Lou?
Yeah, this has set up the stage for a lot of possibilities, even within the context of, we know that there's going to obviously be some major conflicts going here, but you've got all these various factions going on, and the shadow group has got all the major races engaged in some sort of conflict, whether it's internal or external. The Centauri are still trying to expand their territory. Earth now is fighting amongst itself. The Narn are defeated, and that they're trying to win back their independence. All the potential allies are in a pretty bad state right now. They're all in a weak state, and it'll be interesting to see how the rebels, I guess we're calling them at this point, are going to band together, whether they are going to or not. And that will all be interesting to see how that plays out. And then you've got the fact that potentially there's spies or double agents staying behind on Babylon 5, even after they're kicking out the Night Watch and that, and what that's going to bring to the table as well. And how will Babylon 5 exist in terms of commerce and supply? Like, they need supplies. I would think they can only sustain so much, even if they have all this hydroponics and whatnot. They still need supplies from external suppliers and that. And this is going to allow for a whole subculture of smuggling and black market stuff as well. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities here. And how does Babylon 5 figure in any future conflicts with Earth itself? Because it's a stationary station, it can't exactly go to Earth to help in any final battles and that. So will they be leaving the station a lot more now because they have to go out to fight in other areas of space? There's just a lot of interesting questions, and I'm really looking forward to see how it's all going to play out. And then where's Kosh? What the heck has he been doing during this conflict? And Jakar was just kicking ass this episode again. I love the scene with Londo too, when he's complaining out loud about everything, and then the Narn soldier takes the opportunity to actually stick him the way he was describing. So I thought that was pretty well done.
I just a little lovely comedy scene before a very dramatic episode. And yes, just don't we all wish we could have done that sometime, just to stick it to someone who's doing that. Oh yeah, let me go. You guys have brought up a lot of great questions, and I think they'll be answered over the next few weeks. but yeah, we found out that the shadows are playing each other, playing against other races. I don't know we don't know at this point what their end game is. If they're trying to take over everything, what's going on? Why are they doing both sides? We now have to, where do you go? I'm sure that some of Babylon 5 is self-sufficient, but not totally. This isn't like the Silo, that the series we were talking about before we hit record. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be seen. You would think that Mimbar would be a alliance with Babylon 5, which is a very strong alliance, but the Warrior Cast isn't going to want to be part of that. So where do we go? How much do we do? So this is setting us up for some very interesting dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts? We need to go. Oh, let's spend a few minutes for us shippers. Delenn comes in and he just is looking at her with puppy eyes. He kisses her hand. I just knew they were going to give a big old hug or kiss to each other, but they aren't yet. But there is so much chemistry between these two. He does hug her when everyone's applauding with the slow clap. So Karen, as a fellow John, as you're much love for Bruce, what are you thinking about him there?
I think it's great. I do wonder why it came around so quickly. Were they planting big seeds for this and I didn't see them? I do the fact that they have a little romance going. It's very cool, but I wonder where it came from. And I don't want to get burnt because we did have some other possibilities for love stories and they were subverted.
They've gone to dinner together. She's had him over to dinner.
With Lanier, though.
Yes, and they had the kind of when he couldn't sleep and she had the artificial rain. I think they've done a little bit of something going on between them. Yeah.
Yeah, they did plant little seeds. It's just not quite as overt. And I think that's good because we had, just talking about Bruce Boxleitner, there was a huge lead up to him and Mrs. King, Scarecrow, right. Mrs. King getting together. And we have other shows like, and classically Moonlighting and Castle, where the leads, there was this huge buildup and we were frustrated by it and it never happened until like later in the series. This is nice.
Yeah.
That they get together so quick. I'm assuming they're getting together. And I would have liked to seen some of their interaction. I know that they had another kind of interaction when Kosh and Delenn decided they were going to prepare him for what was coming, but we didn't see any of that on screen. So I do think they've gotten close. There's just part in my brain. Okay, this is really fast. It's okay. Insta love is the genre, is the subgenre of romance. To love romance. And then we have enemies to lovers with Ivanova and Marcus, which I'm digging very much. And Second Chance, if we talk about Garibaldi and the Mars Colony, and I'm just saying this because I love subgenres of romance and what they are. But yeah, I appreciated that. Like I said earlier, though, the slow clap was super cheesy.
Yes.
But having them do that kind of Star Wars on the bridge after everyone was knighted, or they got those necklaces, and at the end of the first movie. And I'm sorry, I'm not talking about those quote unquote first three.
Yes.
Okay, so Star Wars, the
Episode
original
4.
movie, they're all on the bridge. It reminded me of that they're all coming together, and he puts his arm around Delenn and they're standing there. And Franklin is talking about, hey, they're bad patients and all that. And I'm assuming Garibaldi isn't there because of his arm in real life, Jerry Doyle. I also...
he was in the scene.
Was he? Did he come up later?
He was at the back.
He was there.
Way in the back.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I also think it's funny. I forgot to mention this before, that Jerry Doyle called this episode Severed Limbs. it, because he broke his arm.
Yeah, I love that.
Severed dreams. So yeah, that scene was good. I like their romance, and because of their romance, I started watching Scarecrow Mrs. King again this last week. It's so dumb, but I did.
No, that's great.
And I like his chemistry with her.
Yeah,
he has a way of making chemistry work. Yeah, so very cool.
I agree. Good. How about you? Any final thoughts, Lou?
Yeah, I like the relationship between Sheridan and Delenn, but I always feel sorry for Sinclair because I thought there was something going on with him and Delenn as well. And that's like the poor guy, he's making a big sacrifice and he's going to come back and it's going to be, hey, sorry, absent. Absent, snooze, you lose kind of thing. I do thinking about all the examples Karen was giving, and it just struck me. I think actually one of the best couple romances that was done in a science fiction series was the Peter Olivia relationship in Fringe. I thought that was really well done. And I just it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And there was something else I was going to think I wanted to mention, but I've lost it now, unfortunately. But yeah, just a really good episode, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to what's going on for the rest of the series now. I just hope that we're not going to fall back into these one-offs now, because now that we're into the conflict, don't give me these side stories anymore. We don't need that unless it's something that comes back in the end of the episode and builds up the main storyline in some way. But yeah, the time for and in a series, it's hard to not to do one-offs because you've got like 26 episodes to do in a season, and that's a lot of content
and a lot of characters
without progressing the story too quickly. So the fact that they have a lot of characters and the fact that they have a lot of story, I would think means that it should be much more serialized going forward than it has been before.
Yeah, I agree. I do think they have a lot of content that they can go with. They have the Centauri, they have the Shadows, they have the Rangers. They have a lot of things they can take. A lot of
pieces, yeah.
And so to have a one-off, I think, would be clunky. But I would hope that if they do have a one-off, like Lou said, it relates back. And I also want to drop in here that the scene between Jakar and Delenn, where he picks up the Minbari, we get to see Jakar doing something selflessly and making sure Delenn knows, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'm here for you.
And she calls out what the rest of us said, you are a very different person now.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And that's that quiet, I can carry him as far as you need me to.
Yep.
I can do that.
That was a great scene.
Yeah, they're really great scene. I am looking at the episodes coming up. I think there is only one clunker.
Okay.
I think the rest of them either serve the overall arc or serves a storyline that they had discussed earlier.
Right.
Yeah, there's one clunker.
Okay. Susan didn't read Corwin very well, did she?
No, she didn't. Yeah. No, they didn't.
Exactly. I really like that Corwin's on their side. I really like that.
I do too. Yeah. Absolutely.
As small as that is.
No, it's good. Yeah. All right. I think ratings. Karen.
I give it 10 broken bow staffs.
Ooh, nice. Lou?
Staves.
Staves. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to give it 9.99.
Okay.
What can I say here? Slow claps.
I like that.
It's just a couple of things like that.
Little nits.
That's fair.
There's a couple of little nits here that just.
I'm probably right with you. I'm just rounding up a little bit.
Yeah.
If I round it up, it's a 10. But
yeah. I'm gonna give it 10 out of 10 broken arms.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I come
to
you with broken arms. That's how we used to sing it.
There is, absolutely. If you want to nitpick anything, It's there. But overall, this is just really everything that they've worked for, especially starting in the second season with all this and Night Watch coming on. I think what is worth mentioning is both of you said that they know they haven't gotten everyone off station that could be against them, right? They
Yeah,
even
that
say,
was
"We
something
got
I
everyone
actually
we knew."
mentioned.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
The other thing I want to mention is it's very interesting to me is that this episode is taking place where it is. Timing wise, you usually have this type of an episode either at the end of usually at the end of a season
Right.
or very close to the beginning. To put it in the middle like this is very interesting.
Yeah, so you wonder what'll be the big episode at the end. I wonder
what'll
what they
be the
could explore.
cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this very easily could have been a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Yes.
End of season episode.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. We've gotten some feedback.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and abridge these a little bit. It's gonna be difficult.
Yeah, by the way,
but
we love the long emails. We are not saying we don't. We love them. We all read them just for simplicity's sake to keep the episode moving. Yeah.
I read the entirety after we record because, like I said, I try not to read them. Although I did read the first line of Texas Anashocks because it hits me in a good place. He writes, Narnie Jenkins. That's a World of Warcraft reference, which, very cool.
Yeah.
Overall, I thought this episode was boring. What do you think? It's not like anything of significance happened here. It's not like the entire course of the series has been altered. This is 90s television. Status quo was the god. All production crews worshipped at the altar of the sacred reset button. Off, Voyager. Off. So at the end of this, we know B5 is going to be right back where it was, no matter how little sense it actually makes. They'll declare independence and kick Earth off the station entirely. Wait, that never happens on TV. So next episode, then they'll resolve everything and wind up right back there, right? He talks about the Alexander is a type of ship that has been called an Omega-class destroyer. The Clarkstown is, depending on the source, a Hyperion or Alpha-class cruiser. This is interesting since cruisers are traditionally larger than destroyers, especially heavy cruisers, which were basically a step down from a battleship. But here, the Alexander is the bigger ship. Yeah, I liked, seeing how big the ships were and everything in this episode. It was very cool. Like we talked about, the special effects were good. We find out the Shadows have been playing both sides, contacting the races the Centauri have invaded and offering their assistance in repelling them, presumably not mentioning they're the ones behind the Centauri's recent aggression in the first place. These races then find their own expansionist ambitions awakened, and so they start invading each other. The Shadows are truly acting as agents of chaos here. 100%. He talks about a bit with Delenn, a little bit about Sheridan and his dad, and the Clark loyal. Oh, we totally forgot to talk about INN or whatever. The news station.
Yeah.
That was good too. And we've seen that sort of thing happen in real life as well, where a station says things they're not supposed to say.
Yeah, I thought that was really well done. The actress who's playing we'd seen her before as the anchor.
The female anchor, yeah.
And then this guy like, okay, we can't stay quiet anymore. We can't. And that was...
And then they pulled the plug. Yeah,
exactly.
I love that he says they're shooting outside. Yeah. And anyway, that's my thing. It's not in the email. After that is mainly wrapping up, Ryan takes the Alexander off to look for other ships that are sympathetic to their cause. B5 takes on some of the Churchill's orphaned fighters. Sheridan and Delenn have a nice moment, and they start shipping the members of Night Watch out, the ones they know about, at least.
Good point.
Why are some of its members unknown? Considering the nature of the organization, it does not surprise me that there would be some members who are not officially on the rolls. Ones who don't wear the armband, they just lurk in the background and watch. Until then, keep working that repressed anger out. This is the Texas on the Shock signing off in Valen's name. And it was much longer than that. I'm abridging. So Nathan sends one. This is it. That's the episode that won the Hugo Award, Hearts of the People in Battle for Independence of Babylon 5. As usual with the best episodes, there's not much original for me to say compared to what you've probably already said. There are several things to note. I really thought that General Haig's plot would pan out and we will return to regularly scheduled programming. I thought that Narn's destruction and capitulation is the end of it, but B5 is continuing Game of Thronesing 20 years before Game of Thrones. Seeing that general with the PPG and people behind him shooting everything has gone to hell, John, was gripping. One of the more exciting things is seeing people on the station reacting to the Declaration of Independence and Corwin and the rest of the CNC staff being confused. I love when a bigger perspective exists and it's just about main characters. Mira Furlan's performance here is amazing, of course. People always note Peter Jurassic and Andreas Katsoulis' acting because it's great, but also hammy is the best way. It's performance Oscar voters go for. But Mira always delivers, even in a scene where she talks to a bunch of silent people, chastising them. She's amazing, and the final speech when she arrives with Minbari ships is one many fans cite as their favorite very often. On to the next one, Nathan. And we have two emails from David. I am really going to abbreviate, and I'm sorry, David. Although we did do your prank, so you get 2 mentions on this show.
Yes, you do.
I hope that works for you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay, that's just a trivia one. Sorry about that. Thought it best to have the behind the scenes and the episode bits separate, he says. Okay, it's time to address the elephants in the room, aka stuff that isn't a mistake but doesn't make sense, at least to me. Jakar has nothing better to do than hang out in the docking bay? Only possible thought I have for this is he was already there for a different, probably clandestine purpose. Yeah, he's all over the place.
Yeah.
Military hierarchy, probably not a biggie for 95% of viewers. We really don't know Ryan's place in the scheme of things, but at least in US DOD, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Haig's title, rates considerably higher than a major for an aide. Hell, it's not unheard of for the Joint Chiefs to send 1 stars out to fetch coffee. The Grey Council, what a stroke of luck that the new head of the council, Niroon, someone who has openly challenged Delenn before, isn't in the episode. That's true. We didn't see him. We just saw the war members standing there hooded.
Yeah, obviously he was there, but because the actor wasn't on, no speaking. Yeah.
This is a critical situation that more than likely will lead to combat. We have at most 6 hours to prepare. So when we see Sheridan's hologram speech shortly before the start of hostilities, we see part of it inside Earhart's, the EA, and the place was packed. Makes sense to you? It does. They're always down in the Zocalo. The battle, right before all hell breaks loose, Ivanova asks about Drawl. Sheridan wants him as a quote-unquote whole card. Yeah. First attack beaten off. They are in bad shape. Second wave comes through the jump gate, and Sheridan immediately looks like he is beaten. And to top it off, there's 4 more jump points. No mention of contacting Drawl. Again, we mentioned that. It's weird. Aftermath. So the good guys have won. Sheridan has taken off his jacket and gotten his boob bandaged. B5 and Alexander have both taken a lot of damage. So immediately Ryan decides they need to leave B5. You went there in the first place for what reason?
Mm-hmm.
We need to catch our breath and make repairs. The only safe place is Babylon 5.
Yeah.
If anything, B5 is safer since it now has 4 Minbari cruisers patrolling the area, and they have a source for spare parts. The destroyer that wasn't completely disintegrated. Okay, I get that. Why did they leave so quickly?
Yeah.
It's a pot. plot contrivance, which
Yeah.
works for me. So anyway, that's Nathan, that's David's. And so I want to thank Nathan, David, and Texas for their emails. Very insightful. I love them always. And if you want to send an email as well, what are we again?
We are jklb5podcast@gmail.com.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. And if they want to reach you, well, Lou, anything that needs to cover in our YouTube channel?
So the comments from the previous episode, Point of No Return, there's two that stand out to me. One's about the ongoing debate about DS9 and B5, and FSM Dogs recommends reading JMS's bio, Becoming Superman, which goes into that a lot more. And I think, Jesse, you responded to that.
Yeah.
You agree with that. And then the other comment I found interesting was user MU1VW3PO8M. I don't know if that actually turns out to be something that you can say as a word, but their comment is, this is the first time I've seen the idea expressed out loud that the support of the Narns for Babylon 5 and the representatives of Earth in general is not something self-evident and understandable. And when I first read that, I thought, that's interesting that nobody else has questioned that in all the discussions about Babylon 5. And Jesse, you can maybe address that better than I can. But when I thought about it a bit more, I think it's indicative of the sign of the times, that because of all the social media and targeted news and whatnot, that we don't trust any source completely anymore. So any gestures by a group or an individual, we're cynical towards it. And that's a sad commentary, but unfortunately, that's the world that we live in now. And that's probably why we are questioning motives of people that normally would have been self-evident.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think
the
that's exactly what
translation
it
of
is.
that name is Ilona in Russian.
Which one?
I'll just call her Ilona.
The M1U?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How did you get that?
I clicked on her profile.
Oh, okay.
And saw her name there.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's Russian?
Yep. It's in Cyrillic.
Okay. So. All right. And that's it. Thanks everyone that keeps commenting. We definitely appreciate it.
How can they reach you guys, Lou?
You can reach me on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, where we have this podcast along with the JKL Media podcast, my writers podcast, and Stephen King podcast. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzwa.
And Karen?
And I am at Elevaria on the various social media sites. And you can see my blog. The landing page has a bunch of links, and that is aliesstuff.com.
And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. Please go to iTunes, rate and review this podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Please leave comments, whatever ratings. If you listen to us on a different podcast app, please rate and review them there. That is how we find new listeners, and we would love to have you share this with someone who has either watched Babylon 5 or hasn't and joined. Also, hang in. We are continuing to go through our 12 Monkeys watch, and we are going through that. We are on the second season, and it's a fun series that if you have not watched, I recommend jump in, watch it, and then turn over to our discussions and hear our thoughts. Just want to say, as always, thank you, Lou. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate the love and support. For now, be careful, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
And done. Yay.